Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am not here with Geeky Sparkles. I'm going to talk about video games. I'm going to talk about Palworld and the shocking but not shocking announcement yesterday during the State of Play that Palworld is coming to the PS5. However, it's not coming out in Japan because of this lawsuit with Nintendo. We're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Yeah, if you watched the State of Play last night, they had a pretty lengthy trailer for Palworld coming to PlayStation 5. That shouldn't surprise anybody because Sony is crawling into bed with Pocket Pair. And they're going to be starting a new company, supposedly, that is going to sort of be like the Pokemon Company. They're going to create anime and stuffed animals and any kind of merchandise and try to compete with Nintendo. But of course, there's the little issue of this lawsuit that they have to deal with. And this is over a patent or multiple patents that Nintendo filed pretty recently. And people don't know specifically which ones that they're taking Pocket Pair to court for, but they think it has something to do with the Pokeball catching mechanism. Like they tried to patent that. But here's the problem with this, and I know people are rooting for Nintendo because they think Palworld is a shameless copy of Pokemon. But if Nintendo is successful, they're going to use patent law, copyright law to take down anybody they perceive as competition, because they're patenting some pretty ridiculous game mechanics. Like if your character has a shadow and they hide behind an object and you can only find them by looking for the shadow. Yeah, they can patent that, and so they're gonna like patent every major game mechanic out there to shut out the competition. If they could patent the concept of video games, I think they would absolutely do it. But this is coming from Polygon. Palworld surprise launches on PlayStation 5 in spite of the Pokemon lawsuit, except in Japan. It's awkward timing. No, they knew what was up. Sony for 100% knew this was going to happen. They've been threatening it for months. I don't think they really care so much. I think they knew, like, look, everybody talks, right? I mean, you're not blindsided with legal action like this. I'm sure there was some communication between Nintendo and Pocket Pair leading up to it. There were threats, of legal action back in February. And again, this comes down to not just what they're doing, but how successful they were. If this were an indie title that not a lot of people were playing, I don't think they would care. Like, I like Cassette Beasts, right? But Cassette Beasts did not have the ridiculous sales numbers that Palworld had, the concurrent player count that Palworld had. So that's kind of what they're looking at. They're like, yeah, this is an actual threat to our brand. So this is, believe it or not, coming from Polygon. Palworld's out on PS5. Sony Interactive Entertainment and developer Pocket Pair made the announcement Tuesday during the State of Play. It's somewhat awkward timing for the creature-catching open-world survival game closely following a Japanese lawsuit filed by the Pokémon Company. Previously, there was no announcement suggesting that Palworld would come to PS5. I think it was pretty much a sure thing, given that they were going to work with Sony to create anime and merchandise. But yeah, it was basically a given considering a newly announced partnership between Pocket Pair and Sony Music. The two companies joined together to create Palworld Entertainment, a multimedia licensing company that sounds a lot like Palworld's version of the Pokemon Company. Despite that, Tuesday's announcement and surprise launch is the first formal acknowledgement of the game coming to PlayStation 5. It was originally out for Steam, Windows, Xbox One, etc., etc. Shortly after the announcement, Pocket Pair posted on its Japanese X account, "There's no planned release date in Japan. We apologize to everyone in Japan who is looking forward to it, but all of our staff will do our best to deliver it to PS5 users as soon as possible. So we hope you will wait a little bit longer," Pocket Pair tweeted via a machine translation. Polygon has reached out to Pocket Pair to confirm whether the delay is due to the lawsuit. I'm sure it is. 100%, I'm sure it is. They probably legally cannot release it because of the lawsuit, because it's being contested right now. So what I think is probably going to happen, based on the articles I've read from different lawyers, the most likely scenario is that they will have to pay a fine to Nintendo, and they might have to change some of the game mechanics. I do not believe, especially since Sony has gone all in and created Palworld Entertainment with them, I do not believe the game is going to be destroyed. I do not believe the game is going to be delisted. I think Nintendo is just going to try to get some money out of them and try to throw a wrench into mechanics that are too similar to Pokemon. But at the end of the day, like, what can they do, really? I mean, there are lots of other creature catching games out there, right? It's just this one happens to be probably the closest to Pokemon. It happens to be, they're working with their competitor Sony, which is what I think, actually, I mean, this is a personal opinion. I think that is actually what triggered the lawsuit. When Sony made the announcement they were going to start their own Pokemon company, basically with Pocket Pair, Nintendo's like, oh, hell no. Hell no. And it's a huge threat to them. Again, this isn't just some indie publisher putting out, a Cassette Beast or something, which is a very good game, by the way. This is Sony, their dreaded nemesis Sony, the people that stuck it to them back in the 90s and have been sticking it to them ever since, teaming up with a company that is doing something very similar to Pokemon, and it wound up being incredibly popular. It is absolutely positively a huge threat for them. The Palworld clip shown during State of Play curiously didn't include any footage of the game's creature catching mechanic. Yes, I think that was intentional. I noticed that too. Instead, it showed its creatures called pals toiling away in camps, and then cut to a person using a gun to take on enemy pals. The lack of pal spheres, however, may be a coincidence. I do not believe it's a coincidence. It's personal opinion, of course, but that is a kind of a core mechanic in the game. I think they knew this lawsuit was coming. I think they deliberately sidestepped it. And I think the worst case scenario is they're going to have to come up with another way to capture pals. Maybe it'll be like a pal ghost trap or something. They're going to have to do something. But if that's the issue, is you can't put the animals in the balls, then you just come up with some other way to capture them. Beyond Tuesday's State of Play, Palworld was also expected to appear at the upcoming Tokyo Game Show. So some press noticed after the lawsuit went public that Palworld was removed from the list at the Tokyo Game Show. It's possible this is unrelated to the lawsuit entirely, and perhaps an unintentional leak of Tuesday's surprise launch. Latter is likely, as after the State of Play, Pocket Pair confirmed via news release it is going to appear at the Tokyo Game Show. Yeah, so this is really interesting. A lot of people on Twitter, dumb people on Twitter, were like, how is this possible? This is impossible. Nintendo's gonna shut them down. It looks like Pokemon. It's like, yeah, I don't, it's not that easy, Chief. It really isn't that easy. People think these lawsuits are very cut and dry, and they're not. I mean, sometimes it can be like people get by the skin of their teeth or whatever. And I think what's really at stake here is, can Nintendo use patent law, copyright law, to shut down any potential competitor? And there is a case that they apparently did do that with another game, but it depends on the judge. The judge might look at it and be like, yeah, if I say Nintendo's in the right, then any competitor going forward, Nintendo is going to use the same tactics to shut them down. And that's pretty dangerous for the market. But again, we're talking, Japan versus America, right? So it's going to work differently over there. This came from Forbes a couple days ago. Japanese fans are siding with Nintendo over the Pocket Pair lawsuit. Here's one translated from Japanese. I laughed so hard at the statement from Palworld because they said things that they definitely didn't need to say. This should be left as a lesson for any company that's sued by Nintendo in the future, and should remain so for all time to come. I didn't have any particular ill feelings toward Palworld, but I feel like this incident has reduced the number of people defending them in society by about half. I don't know. People are pretty excited about it coming to PS5. Much of the anger at Pocket Pair seems to be about them lacking any morals as a game developer. The interesting thing here is that what the Western response has been more on Pocket Pair's side. Yeah, viewing them as some kind of underdog, which is not a viewpoint widely shared by Japanese fans. The way Pocket Pair called the indie developer card actually angered some people. So here's another one. This is a Aki Luna Child. This person said, Nintendo is very kind. In the past, when someone made a modified Pokemon game, Pokemon Fire Red ROM, they said modifications are not allowed, but original content is fine. And so an indie Pokemon style game made from scratch is still available to buy. So at least they're not just randomly crushing similar games, right? I think it's the size of, again, I think it's the size of this game. It's massive. And I think them teaming up with Sony is really what tipped it over. Because Palworld the popularity kind of came and went. Like, it was a huge deal when it came out, and a lot of people bought it just to check it out. And then they kind of got bored, and you could see the player count going down. And I think if it had just been left alone, it probably would have just been another Pokemon type game. Oh yeah, remember that game that came out like 4 or 5 years ago? It's kind of like Pokemon. It's still out there, but not a lot of people play it, whatever. They teamed up with Sony and basically said, we're going to go head to head with Nintendo. We're going to form our own Pokemon Company, Palworld Entertainment, or whatever they're calling it. And we're going to go head to head with Nintendo. And that's, I think, what they're like, oh, no. But I mean, Nintendo is not as kind as they want to make it out. This is the same Nintendo that will crush you, will crush you if you work on emulators, or you have a ROM site, or they will just destroy you. And they've shut down fan projects in the past. They've sued people into oblivion in the past. What was the situation with the one emulator? They actually went to the guy's house or something, and they wanted to, they're like, Nintendo's not, they're not as nice and kind as people want to make them out to be, right? So I don't know who to root for in this situation. I'm going to be honest. Like, I like Nintendo. I am not a fan of some of the stuff that Sony's done over the last couple of years, and in particular with, their DEI, their pivot to DEI and nerfing games to appeal to Western sensibilities or whatever. But Nintendo, they can be bullies. I mean, they're very much like the Disney of Japan, right? They historically put out really good products. Disney, historically has put out really good products, but they're also vicious when it comes to litigation. So, and I think it's overkill sometimes. So we'll see what happens. But for now, it's out on PS5 everywhere but Japan. And I don't think the game's going anywhere. I think they're just going to have to make some changes to it. That's my opinion. Going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later. Join the reef. Go to clownfish-.com. That's clownfish-.com. You will get exclusive access to podcasts and videos and comic strips and more, as well as merch discounts. Check it out. If you were a member, you could get this t-shirt, this dismal t-shirt on our website. You'd get a 10% discount on that. You can also join in the community on clownfish-.com. Thank you so much for the support.